The early morning sun cast golden rays over the sprawling fields of Montana, brushing dew off the tall grass like a mother tenderly waking her child. In a small wooden house at the edge of town, 17-year-old Eli Carter laced up his worn-out boots, slung his tattered backpack over his shoulder, and stepped out onto the porch. His fingers were rough, his palms calloused from years of helping his father tend the land, but his eyes, deep blue and determined, burned with the kind of hope that refused to die. Eli wasn't like the other kids at Ridgewood Academy. He didn't arrive in shiny SUVs or wear designer sneakers. He brought his lunch in a reused bread bag and walked 5 miles every morning, his mind echoing with algebra formulas and lines from classic literature. School, to him, was sacred ground, a ticket to a better life not just for himself, but for his father, who worked 2 jobs and still couldn't afford new boots for his son. But that morning, everything changed. Eli was called to the principal's office after his calculus exam. His heart thudded with nerves, thinking perhaps he'd finally qualified for the scholarship he had applied for. But Principal Whitmore's face was like stone. "I'm sorry, Eli," she said, avoiding his eyes. "The school board has decided to revoke your enrollment. Your tuition hasn't been paid for the last 2 months. We've given extensions, but the decision is final." Eli blinked. "But the scholarship. It was awarded to another student." "I'm sorry." No ride home was offered. He walked back through the empty country road, his backpack feeling heavier than ever before, his dreams unraveling with every step. That night, Eli sat beside his father on their front porch, the old man's hands shaking from exhaustion, face weathered by wind and worry. "I'm sorry, son," his father whispered. "I failed you." Eli put a hand on his shoulder. "You gave me everything that mattered, Dad. Books, belief, and love. That's more than most kids ever get." The next morning, just as the sun peeked over the horizon, a thundering sound split the sky. A helicopter, sleek and silver, descended over their field, whipping the wheat into a frenzy. Eli and his father shielded their eyes as the chopper landed and a tall figure emerged, flanked by assistants. It was Gregory Langston, billionaire tech magnate and Ridgewood's biggest donor. Eli recognized him from magazine covers and the odd documentary he'd snuck a peek at in the library. "I'm looking for Eli Carter," Langston said, his voice calm but urgent. Eli stepped forward, unsure. "That's me." Langston's face softened. "Your letter reached me." Eli frowned. "I never sent you a letter." Langston pulled out a worn envelope. "Your English teacher did. She sent me your essay, the one about fixing America's broken education system. Said it made her cry." Eli's cheeks flushed. He remembered the assignment. He'd written from his soul. About growing up poor, how kids like him were invisible, how potential was wasted simply because no one could afford to see it. Langston looked around. "This your home?" Eli nodded. Langston turned to his assistant. "Get the paperwork ready. Full scholarship. Not just high school, college too. And renovate the house." Eli and his father stared in stunned silence. "But why?" Eli managed. Langston smiled. "Because a kid who sees the world that clearly, and still chooses kindness in his writing, deserves every chance. Because I was you once." Tears welled in Eli's eyes. That week, construction crews transformed their tiny house. The media caught wind, and soon Eli's story went viral. People from around the world sent messages of support, donations, and offers. But Eli didn't let it change who he was. He returned to Ridgewood, not in a helicopter, but on foot. He walked back through those gates with his head held high, wearing his old boots as a reminder. When the school offered him a special welcome-back ceremony, he declined. Instead, he asked for a meeting with the board. He stood before them, confident and calm. "You cast me out for being poor. That should never happen to any child. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here to make sure no one else is ever turned away because they can't pay. Moved by his words and the overwhelming public support, the board voted to create a new scholarship, the Carter Fund, for underprivileged students with high potential. Years later, Eli became an advocate, speaking across the country about educational reform, poverty, and the power of compassion. He never forgot where he came from. He never stopped wearing those boots. The helicopter had brought change. But it was Eli's spirit, unbreakable and kind, that transformed lives. And so, from a dusty field in Montana rose a story of hope that reminded the world, true wealth isn't found in dollars or degrees, but in the hearts that refuse to give up, even when the world turns its back. Because sometimes, all it takes is one letter. One teacher. One act of kindness. And a boy who dared to dream, even in worn-out boots. Here's your emotional and inspiring story, crafted to resonate with a wide audience and designed for a spoken narration of about 20 to 25 minutes. Let me know if you'd like an audio version, visual adaptation, or any edits.